The lights went out at 6:47 p.m. on a Thursday evening in August, and I knew immediately that the rest of my neighborhood in Scottsdale, Arizona, was about to lose their minds. I was sitting in my home office, finishing up some work emails when the power grid failed. Unlike my neighbors, though, my lights flickered for exactly 2 seconds before my whole home generator kicked in with a reassuring hum. The transition was so smooth that my computer didn't even restart. My name is Xavier Palmer, and I had installed that generator system 6 months earlier after a particularly brutal summer storm knocked out power for 3 days. I work from home as a software consultant, and losing power means losing income. The generator had cost me nearly $15,000, but it was worth every penny. It ran on natural gas, could power my entire house, and would keep running as long as the gas line stayed intact. I stood up and walked to my front window, looking out at the darkened houses lining Saguaro Hills Drive. My house was the only one with lights on, and I could already see neighbors emerging from their homes, phones in hand, presumably calling the power company. The August heat was brutal even after sunset, and without air conditioning, those houses would become ovens within an hour. My phone buzzed. It was my wife, Sandra. "Hey, the power just went out at the grocery store," she said. "Are you okay at home?" Generator kicked in perfectly. "Take your time, the house will be cool when you get back." "Thank God you installed that thing. I will admit I was skeptical about the cost, but you were right." I smiled. Sandra had questioned the expense initially, but after I showed her the calculations on how much money we could lose from power outages, she came around. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital and often worked odd hours, so coming home to a cool house was essential for her sleep schedule. After hanging up, I went back to my office. Through the window, I could see flashlights bobbing in the darkness next door. The Johnsons had 3 young kids, and I felt a pang of sympathy. Those kids were probably scared. About an hour later, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Greg Johnson standing there, sweating profusely. "Hey, Xavier," he said, wiping his forehead. "Sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if we could run an extension cord over, just enough to power a couple fans for the kids. They are really struggling with the heat." "Of course, man. Let me grab my heavy-duty extension cord." I helped Greg set up 2 fans in his kids' room, running the cord through our adjoining fence. His wife, Michelle, thanked me profusely. "The power company says it could be out until tomorrow afternoon," Greg said. "Something about a substation failure." "Well, keep the fans as long as you need them. That generator can handle it." I went back home feeling good about helping out. That feeling lasted approximately 20 minutes until my doorbell rang again. This time, it was the Hendersons from across the street, asking if they could charge their phones and run a small refrigerator. Then the Martinses from 2 doors down needed to power their medical equipment for their elderly mother. I said yes to everyone. How could I not? These were my neighbors, and I had the means to help. By 10 p.m., I had extension cords snaking across my front yard to 4 different houses. My generator was working harder, but it was rated for my whole house, and I was only sharing auxiliary power. That is when Sharon Vickers showed up. Sharon was the president of our HOA, the Saguaro Hills Homeowners Association. She was 53 years old, had the kind of haircut that demanded to speak to managers everywhere, and treated the HOA rulebook like it was the Constitution and the Bible combined. She drove a white Lexus SUV with a custom license plate that read HOA, which she seemed to think was clever rather than ominous. "Xavier," she said, not bothering with pleasantries, "I need to discuss something with you." "What's up, Sharon?" "I have been observing your generator situation, and I have concerns." As HOA president, I need to ensure fair distribution of resources during this crisis. I blinked. Excuse me. You are sharing your generator power with select neighbors, which is creating an inequitable situation. I need you to create a schedule that allows all residents to access your generator fairly. Sharon, I am helping out neighbors who asked. Anyone can come by and request some power for essential items. That is not how this works. We need organized structure. I have already drafted a schedule. She pulled out her phone and showed me a spreadsheet. Each household will get 2 hours of generator access per day, rotating through all 47 homes in the community. I stared at her. That is insane. My generator cannot power 47 houses. It can barely handle the 4 extensions I am already running plus my own house. Then you will need to reduce your own consumption. This is about community, Xavier. Sharon, I paid for this generator. I maintain it. I pay for the natural gas to run it. I am happy to help neighbors with essential needs, but I am not running a utility company here. Her eyes narrowed. According to HOA bylaws, Section 14, subsection C, any resident who possesses emergency resources during a community-wide crisis must make reasonable accommodations for the health and safety of other residents. That is about opening your home if there is a hurricane or something. Not about commandeering someone's private generator. I interpret it differently. This is a community emergency and you have resources others do not. I expect your cooperation or we will have to take this to the board. She turned and walked away before I could respond, her heels clicking on my driveway despite the darkness. Sandra got home around 11 p.m., navigating by the glow of my house, which now looked like a lighthouse in a sea of darkness. "Why do we have extension cords everywhere?" she asked. I explained the situation, including Sharon's visit. Sandra's expression grew darker as I talked. "She cannot make you do that," Sandra said. "That is absurd." "I know, but you know Sharon. She will make this a whole thing." "Let her try. You bought that generator with our money. You are already being generous helping people." We went to bed, though it was hard to sleep knowing the rest of the neighborhood was sweltering. I kept my extension cords running through the night, helping where I could. The next morning, Friday, I woke to find a notice zip-tied to my mailbox. It was an official HOA violation notice, citing me for extension cords visible from the street and operating loud machinery during quiet hours. The generator was in my backyard and was actually pretty quiet, but that did not matter to Sharon. The power was still out. According to the news, the substation explosion was worse than initially thought. Power would not be restored until at least Sunday. My phone started ringing at 8 a.m. It was Sharon. "Good morning, Xavier. I am calling to inform you that the HOA board held an emergency meeting this morning." "Without notifying residents. That is against your own bylaws. We have provisions for emergency sessions. We voted 4-1 that you must implement the generator sharing schedule. I will be emailing it to all residents this morning." "You cannot force me to do this, Sharon." "We can and we will. If you refuse, you will face daily fines of $500 for non-compliance with HOA emergency protocols. This is extortion. This is community management. I expect your cooperation by noon today." She hung up. I immediately called my lawyer, Tom Richardson. Tom had helped me with my business contracts and knew HOA law reasonably well. "Xavier, she is bluffing," Tom said after I explained everything. "The HOA has no legal authority to commandeer your private property. That clause she is citing is about shelter, not utilities. Even then, it would be voluntary. Can she fine me? She can try, but you would win in court. Do not pay any fines. Document everything she is doing. This could actually become a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment. I do not want a lawsuit. I just want to run my generator in peace and help my immediate neighbors. Then ignore her. Keep doing what you are doing. If she escalates, call me immediately. I felt better after talking to Tom, but that relief was short-lived. Around 10 a.m., Sharon's email went out to the entire neighborhood. The subject line was Generator Access Schedule Mandatory Compliance. The email explained that I had graciously agreed to share my generator with the community and included a detailed schedule. Each household had a 2-hour window. My own house was allocated the same 2 hours as everyone else, from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. My phone exploded with calls and texts. Some neighbors were grateful, asking when their time slot was. Others were confused, asking if I had really agreed to this. A few expressed concern, recognizing that Sharon was overstepping. I sent a community-wide email in response, explaining that I had not agreed to any schedule, that I was happy to help with essential needs, but that my generator could not physically support the plan Sharon proposed. Sharon called me within 5 minutes of my email going out. "You are undermining the HOA board and creating chaos in this community," she screamed into the phone. "I am adding another $500 fine for insubordination. You cannot fine me for insubordination. This is not the military. You signed the HOA agreement when you bought your house. You are bound by our rules. I also have property rights that supersede your made-up emergency powers. We will see what the community thinks about your selfish attitude." She hung up again. By lunchtime, the situation had deteriorated further. Several neighbors, emboldened by Sharon's email, showed up at my door demanding their scheduled generator time. When I explained that there was no such schedule, some got angry. One man, Jerry Paulson, accused me of discrimination. "Sharon said you promised everyone access. Now you are backing out. That is messed up. I never promised anything. Sharon made that up. She is the HOA president. Why would she lie?" I did not have a good answer for that. Jerry left angry, and I knew he would be complaining to Sharon. Sandra came out of the house, still in her scrubs from her night shift. "What is happening? Sharon is turning the neighborhood against me. This is ridiculous. Let me talk to her." "Sandra, she is not going to listen." "Maybe she will listen to reason from someone who is not you." Sandra called Sharon, putting it on speaker. I listened as my wife calmly explained that the generator could not physically support 47 houses, that we were already helping several neighbors, and that Sharon's schedule was impossible. Sharon's response was icy. "Sandra, I understand you work in healthcare, so you understand community needs during emergencies. Your husband has resources that others desperately need. Children are suffering. Elderly people are at risk. His refusal to cooperate is putting lives in danger." "That is emotional manipulation, and you know it," Sandra said. "We are helping people. We have extension cords running to 4 houses right now. 4 out of 47. That is selective assistance, and it is unacceptable. I expect full compliance by tonight, or the fines will continue to accumulate." Sandra hung up, her face flushed with anger. She is unbelievable. The afternoon brought a new problem. The 4 families I was helping began using more power. The Johnsons plugged in a window AC unit. The Hendersons connected their refrigerator and freezer. The Martinses added a TV and laptop chargers. My generator started straining. I had to go around and explain that we needed to limit usage to essentials only. Greg Johnson was understanding, but the others were less so. "You have power to spare," Mrs. Henderson said. "Your whole house is running." "My generator is rated for my house's load. Adding 4 more houses is already pushing it. If everyone plugs in high-draw appliances, the system will overload and shut down. Then nobody has power. She reluctantly agreed to unplug the freezer, but I could tell she was unhappy. Around 4 p.m., I noticed more extension cords appearing in my yard. Neighbors were connecting to the cords I was already running, creating a daisy chain of power strips and extensions. I ran outside. "Hey, you cannot do this. You will overload everything." A woman I recognized from down the street looked up. Sharon said it was fine. "This is my scheduled time." "There is no schedule. My generator cannot handle this." But more people were coming, carrying extension cords and power strips. Within minutes, I had a dozen neighbors in my yard, all trying to plug into my 4 extension cords. The inevitable happened. My generator's overload protection kicked in and everything shut down. My house went dark. The fans at the Johnsons stopped. Everyone's phones stopped charging. The generator shut down completely. "What happened?" someone yelled. "You overloaded it," I said, trying to stay calm. "Everyone needs to unplug everything so I can restart it." "This is your fault," someone else said. "If you had set up a proper distribution system, this would not have happened." I wanted to scream. Instead, I started unplugging extension cords and asking everyone to leave my property. Some complied, others argued. A few took out their phones and started recording me. "Look at this guy," one man said to his phone camera. "He has a whole generator but would not share with the community. Now everyone suffers." "I was sharing until you all overloaded it." The argument attracted more neighbors. Soon I had a crowd of about 20 people in my front yard, all angry, all hot, all blaming me for their discomfort. That is when Sharon arrived. She pulled up in her Lexus, parked in the street, and approached with the confidence of someone who knew they had already won. "I warned you, Xavier. I tried to organize this properly, but you refused. Now look at the chaos you created." "I created." "You told everyone they could use power that I never agreed to provide. You have a moral obligation to help your community." "I was helping my community until you interfered," the crowd murmured. Some people were on my side, but many seemed swayed by Sharon's framing. Sharon turned to address everyone. "The HOA board has decided to take emergency action. Xavier has proven he cannot responsibly manage this resource. Therefore, we are implementing a mandatory generator access program. Xavier will provide his generator to the community and we will manage the distribution." "You cannot take my generator," I said. "We are not taking it, we are managing it, for the community good." "That is the same thing and it is illegal. We will see." Sharon turned back to the crowd. "I need volunteers to help set up a proper power distribution system. We will run main lines from Xavier's generator to several points throughout the neighborhood. Everyone will get fair access." Several people volunteered immediately. Before I could stop them, they were discussing plans, drawing diagrams, talking about what equipment they needed. I went inside and called Tom again. "They are trying to take over my generator," I said. "Do not let them access it. Lock it down if you have to. This is theft." "There's a crowd in my yard." "What do I do?" "Call the police. Tell them people are trespassing and attempting to steal your property." I hung up and called 911. The dispatcher seemed confused by my explanation, but agreed to send an officer. While I waited, I went to my backyard where the generator sat. I turned it off completely and locked the fuel valve with a padlock I kept in my garage. Without access to the fuel, nobody could run it. The police arrived about 30 minutes later. Officer Mike Brennan stepped out of his cruiser and surveyed the crowd that had now grown to about 30 people. "Someone called about a disturbance." "I did," I said. "These people are trespassing on my property and trying to take my generator." "We are not taking anything," Sharon said, stepping forward. I am Sharon Vickers, president of the Saguaro Hills HOA. We are implementing emergency protocols to ensure fair distribution of resources during this power outage. Officer Brennan looked tired. Madam, whose generator is it? It belongs to Xavier Palmer, but during a community emergency, the HOA has authority to manage shared resources. Is that true, sir? The officer asked me. Absolutely not. This is my personal property that I purchased and installed at my own expense. The HOA has no authority over it. Officer Brennan nodded slowly. Madam, if it is his personal property, you cannot force him to share it. This is a civil matter at best. Officer, people are suffering. Children are in danger from the heat. Then they should go to a cooling center. The city has several open. But you cannot commandeer someone's personal property. Sharon's face reddened. This is a community emergency. That does not change property law. Everyone needs to clear off this man's property. Now. The crowd grumbled but began to disperse. Sharon stood her ground for a moment, then turned and walked to her Lexus. This is not over, Xavier, she called back. Officer Brennan took my statement and advised me to document everything. He also suggested I consider getting a restraining order if Sharon continued harassing me. After everyone left, I restarted my generator, but this time I only connected my own house. No extension cords. I felt guilty about the families I had been helping, but the situation had become untenable. Greg Johnson came by around sunset. Hey, I just want to apologize for all that chaos. We never asked for any of this. Sharon just kind of took over. I know, man. I am sorry I cannot help anymore. It got too crazy. I totally understand. We will be okay. My brother-in-law is bringing us some battery-powered fans. I appreciated his understanding. Sandra got home from running errands and was shocked when I told her about the afternoon's events. This is insane. Sharon is insane. I know. Tom thinks we might need to sue the HOA. At this point, I would support it. She cannot treat people like this. That night, I barely slept. Every noise outside made me think someone was trying to access my generator. I had locked it down thoroughly, but I did not trust Sharon to respect those boundaries. Saturday morning brought new problems. I woke to find graffiti spray painted on my garage door. Selfish in big red letters. I filed a police report, but Officer Brennan explained that without witnesses or camera footage, there was little they could do. I made a mental note to install security cameras when this was all over. The HOA violations continued. I received 3 more notices that morning for various made-up infractions. Each came with a $500 fine. I was now supposedly in debt to the HOA for over $3,000. I scanned every notice and emailed them to Tom. His response was brief. Do not worry. Document everything. This helps our case. Around 10 a.m., I heard engines outside. I looked out to see a large truck pulling up filled with extension cords, power strips, and electrical equipment. Sharon got out of the passenger side. I went outside. What is this? The HOA has purchased equipment to properly distribute generator power throughout the community. We will be installing it today. Not on my property, you will not. We are not on your property. We will be installing distribution boxes on the easements, which are HOA property. She was technically right. The strips of grass between the sidewalks and street were HOA common areas, but her plan still required access to my generator. You still need power from my generator, which you do not have permission to take. Sharon smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We anticipated your continued non-cooperation. Therefore, we are implementing Plan B. She gestured, and 2 men started unloading a large portable generator from the truck. It was a commercial-grade unit, much larger than my home generator. We purchased this with HOA emergency funds, Sharon explained. "Since you refuse to help, we will provide power ourselves. We will be setting it up in the community park." I was relieved and confused. "So you are leaving my generator alone, for now. But your obstruction has cost the community thousands of dollars in equipment and fuel. You will be assessed a special assessment to recoup these costs. The amount is $12,000, payable within 30 days. My jaw dropped. "You cannot do that." I can and I did. The board voted this morning. Another meeting without notice, emergency provisions. You should read the bylaws more carefully. She walked away, supervising the installation of her new generator in the park at the end of our street. I called Tom immediately. He was less calm this time. $12,000. She is definitely overstepping. We need to act fast. I am going to draft a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment, illegal fines, and abuse of power. But Xavier, you need to prepare for this to get messy. How messy? Sharon seems unstable. People like this, when cornered, often escalate. Make sure you have security cameras. Document everything. Do not engage with her unless absolutely necessary. I took his advice seriously. That afternoon, despite the heat and chaos, I went to a hardware store that had backup power and purchased a complete security camera system. I installed 4 cameras covering my front yard, backyard, driveway, and side gate. The HOA's generator in the park started running around 3 p.m. Immediately, dozens of neighbors descended with extension cords. Unlike my system, Sharon had set up a proper distribution panel with circuit breakers and multiple outlets. She had volunteers managing the system, enforcing time limits, and ensuring nobody overloaded the circuits. I had to admit, from a pure logistics standpoint, she had done it right. Of course, she was spending HOA funds without proper approval, which was its own issue, but at least people were getting power. For a few hours, things seemed to settle down. My generator hummed away, powering just my house. Sharon's generator did the same for the community. It seemed like maybe the worst was over. I should have known better. Around 7 p.m. my power flickered. Then it died completely. My generator was still running, but no power was reaching the house. I checked the generator. It was fine, running normally. I checked the transfer switch that connected the generator to my home's electrical system. Everything looked okay. Then I checked the main electrical panel in my garage. Someone had cut the wires connecting my generator to my house. I felt cold despite the evening heat. Someone had sabotaged my system. They had cut the wires cleanly, deliberately, ensuring my generator could not power my house even though it was running. The only way to access that panel was through my locked garage, which meant someone had broken into my garage and vandalized my electrical system. I checked the garage door. The lock was intact, but the side door, which I rarely used, was slightly ajar. The lock had been picked or forced. I called the police immediately. This was not a civil matter anymore. This was breaking and entering, vandalism, and potentially arson since they had tampered with electrical systems. Officer Brennan responded again, along with a detective named Lisa Moore. "This is escalating," Detective Moore said, examining the cut wires. "Do you know who might have done this?" "I have suspicions, but no proof." I explained the entire situation with Sharon and the HOA. Detective Moore took detailed notes. "I know HOA disputes can get heated," she said, "but this crosses a legal line. This is criminal mischief at minimum. If we can prove who did it, they will be charged." I just installed security cameras today, but they were not up yet when this happened. Bad timing. We will dust for prints, but if they wore gloves, we might not find anything. The police spent an hour documenting everything. They took photographs, dusted for fingerprints, and searched for any other signs of forced entry or disturbance. After they left, I called an emergency electrician. The earliest he could come was tomorrow morning. I would be without generator power until then. Sandra was furious when she got home to a dark house. This is criminal. Sharon did this, or had someone do it. We do not know that for sure. Who else would it be? She had a point, but without proof, I could not accuse anyone. We spent an uncomfortable night in the heat. The temperature inside the house climbed to 85 degrees. We barely slept. Sunday morning, the electrician arrived at 8 a.m. His name was Carlos, and he was sympathetic when I explained what happened. I have heard about HOA disputes getting crazy, but this is next level, he said, examining the damage. Someone knew what they were doing. These cuts are precise. They wanted to disable your system without causing a fire or obvious damage. How long to fix it? A few hours. I need to pull new wire and reconnect everything. It is going to cost you about $800. I nodded. Money was not the issue at this point. While Carlos worked, I reviewed the footage from my new security cameras. They had been recording since yesterday afternoon when I finished installing them. I fast-forwarded through hours of footage, looking for anything suspicious. At 6:47 p.m., I saw something. A figure approached my side gate, looked around, and slipped into my backyard. The angle was not perfect, and the person wore a hoodie despite the heat, making identification difficult. But the body shape and movement suggested a man, medium build. The figure disappeared from view for about 15 minutes, then emerged and left the same way. 20 minutes later, my power had gone out. I called Detective Moore and told her about the footage. She said she would come by to review it. Around noon, my generator was finally repaired and running again. The relief of having air conditioning was immense. Detective Moore arrived an hour later and reviewed the security footage. She agreed the person was probably male, medium build, but without a clear face shot, identification was impossible. I am going to show this to some patrol officers, she said. Maybe someone will recognize the gait or body type. It is a long shot, but you never know. After she left, I decided to check on the HOA generator in the park. I walked down the street and found a scene that looked like a refugee camp. Extension cords snaked everywhere. Neighbors had set up lawn chairs and were sitting near the generator, charging phones and running fans. Sharon was there, clipboard in hand, managing everything like a military operation. She saw me and walked over. Come to see how a real community leader handles a crisis. I came to see if everyone is okay. No thanks to you. We have been managing fine without your help. Sharon, someone broke into my garage last night and sabotaged my generator. Her expression did not change. That is unfortunate. Maybe someone was frustrated with your selfishness. It is a crime. The police are investigating. Good luck with that. She turned and walked away. I watched her for a moment, trying to read her body language. She did not seem surprised or concerned about the break-in. She seemed satisfied. Later that afternoon, the power came back on. The utility company had finally repaired the substation. The neighborhood erupted in cheers. Windows opened, air conditioners roared to life, and normalcy began to return. I shut down my generator, relieved the ordeal was over. I was wrong. The ordeal was just beginning. Monday morning, I received a certified letter from the HOA. It contained a formal notice of the $12,000 special assessment, along with an invoice for the $3,000 in fines I had accumulated. I had 30 days to pay $15,000, or the HOA would place a lien on my property. I forwarded everything to Tom. He called me within an hour. I am filing the lawsuit today, he said. This is outrageous overreach. We are suing for harassment, illegal fines, abuse of authority, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We are also going to request an injunction preventing any further fines or assessments until the case is resolved. How long will this take? Months, probably. But I am confident we will win. The problem is Sharon seems determined to make your life miserable in the meantime. He was right. Over the next week, I received daily violation notices. My grass was too long. My trash cans were visible from the street. My car was parked incorrectly. Each violation came with a $500 fine. I documented everything and sent it to Tom. He filed the lawsuit on Friday, exactly 1 week after the power outage. The lawsuit named Sharon Vickers personally, along with the other board members and the HOA itself. We were seeking damages, legal fees, and an injunction against further harassment. Sharon received the lawsuit papers the following Monday. I know because she showed up at my door that evening. "You are suing me," she screamed. "How dare you? You left me no choice. You are harassing me and illegally fining me. I am doing my job as HOA president. No, you are abusing your power, and it is going to stop. We will see what the judge thinks." She stormed off, and I hoped that would be the end of it. It was not. The next morning, I woke to find all 4 of my tires slashed. My security cameras captured it happening at 3 a.m. A figure in dark clothing, face covered, had walked up my driveway and methodically stabbed each tire before walking away. This time, when Detective Moore reviewed the footage, she could match the gait and body type to the previous break-in. It was likely the same person. "We need to catch this person," she said. "They are escalating. First vandalism, now destruction of property. I am worried about what comes next." "What can I do?" "Keep your cameras running. Vary your routine so you are not predictable. Consider staying somewhere else for a few nights. I am not leaving my house because Sharon Vickers has a vendetta. I understand, but please be careful." I filed an insurance claim for the tires and had them replaced. The deductible was $500. More money down the drain because of this insanity. Tom called with an update on the lawsuit. The judge granted our emergency injunction. "Sharon cannot issue any more fines or assessments against you until the case is resolved. She is also prohibited from contacting you directly." That is great news. There is more. I subpoenaed the HOA's financial records. Guess what I found? What? Sharon spent $25,000 of HOA funds on that generator and distribution system without board approval. That is embezzlement. My stomach dropped. Are you serious? Completely. She falsified emergency meeting minutes to make it look like the board approved the expense, but I talked to the other board members. They never voted on it. Sharon did it unilaterally. What happens now? I am turning this information over to the police. This is no longer just a civil case. Sharon could face criminal charges. I felt a strange mix of vindication and concern. I had never wanted this to become criminal. I just wanted to be left alone. Detective Moore called me later that day. "Mr. Palmer, we have received some interesting information about HOA finances. We are opening an investigation into potential embezzlement." Tom told me. I never wanted it to go this far. I understand, but crimes were committed. We have to follow through. I also wanted to let you know we are bringing Sharon in for questioning about the vandalism incidents. Your description of her behavior suggests she might have motivated someone to commit those acts. The next day, Wednesday, Sharon was questioned at the police station. I was not present, but word spread quickly through the neighborhood. People started taking sides. Some supported Sharon, believing she was being persecuted for trying to help the community. Others were outraged at the financial impropriety. Thursday afternoon, I was working in my home office when I heard shouting outside. I looked out to see Sharon in my front yard, screaming, "This is your fault. You destroyed me. I was trying to help people." I immediately called 911, reminding them about the restraining order which had been granted as part of the injunction. "You were trying to control people," I shouted back through the window, probably unwisely. "There is a difference. I dedicated years to this community, and you ruined it because you could not share a stupid generator." 2 police cars arrived quickly. Sharon was still screaming when the officers approached her. She resisted when they tried to escort her away, and they ended up having to handcuff her. I watched through my window as Sharon Vickers, HOA president and neighborhood terror, was arrested for violating the restraining order. She was still screaming about injustice and community service as they put her in the patrol car. Detective Moore came to my door after Sharon was taken away. "I probably should not tell you this, but I want you to understand what is happening," she said. "Sharon has been cooperating with our investigation. She admitted to asking her nephew to teach you a lesson about community responsibility. He was the one who broke into your garage and slashed your tires. So she did it. She orchestrated it, yes. Her nephew has been arrested. Sharon is being charged with conspiracy to commit vandalism and destruction of property, along with embezzlement of HOA funds. She is looking at serious jail time." I sat down, processing this. "I just wanted to run my generator. I know. But you did the right thing standing up to her. People like Sharon, they abuse power because nobody stops them. You stopped her." The neighborhood learned about Sharon's arrest quickly. The reaction was mixed. Some people apologized to me, admitting they had been swept up in Sharon's narrative. Others still believed I was somehow at fault. The HOA board held an emergency meeting, this one properly noticed and open to residents. They voted unanimously to remove Sharon as president and to cooperate fully with the criminal investigation. They also voted to rescind all fines and assessments against me, and to issue a formal apology. Tom and I attended the meeting. The new interim president, a reasonable woman named Patricia Chen, read the apology. "On behalf of the Saguaro Hills Homeowners Association, we apologize to Xavier Palmer for the harassment and abuse he suffered at the hands of our former president. Mr. Palmer acted within his rights, and the actions taken against him were illegal and unconscionable. We are implementing new oversight procedures to ensure this never happens again." I stood and addressed the room. "I appreciate the apology. I want everyone to know I never wanted this to become what it became. I was happy to help my neighbors. I would still be happy to help if there is another emergency. But I cannot and will not be forced to give up my property rights because someone thinks they have authority they do not actually have." There was scattered applause. Greg Johnson stood up. "I just want to say Xavier helped my family during the power outage. He did not have to. Sharon turned it into something ugly, but Xavier was just being a good neighbor. He does not deserve any of what happened to him." More applause, this time stronger. The meeting ended with a vote to hire a forensic accountant to review all HOA finances and to implement new financial controls. The damage Sharon had done would take months to fully uncover and repair. Over the following weeks, the legal processes played out. Sharon pleaded guilty to embezzlement and conspiracy to commit vandalism. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. She was also ordered to repay the HOA $25,000 plus restitution to me for my damages. Her nephew, whose name was Derek Vickers, pleaded guilty to criminal mischief and breaking and entering. He received 1 year in jail and probation. The civil lawsuit was settled. The HOA agreed to pay my legal fees, which totaled $18,000 plus $10,000 in damages. Every illegal fine was rescinded and expunged from my HOA record. Life slowly returned to normal. The new HOA board was professional and reasonable. They focused on actual community issues like road maintenance and landscaping rather than power trips and control. I kept my generator, of course. And when another power outage happened the following summer during a monsoon storm, I quietly helped my immediate neighbors with extension cords. No drama, no schedules, just neighbors helping neighbors. Greg Johnson and I became good friends. His kids thought my generator was cool, and I let them watch it start up during the next outage. Simple things that should have been simple all along. Sandra and I talked about moving, but ultimately decided to stay. We had built a life in Scottsdale, and we were not going to let one crazy HOA president drive us away. Plus, with Sharon gone, the neighborhood was actually pretty nice. I installed better locks, kept my security cameras running, and made sure my generator was always maintained and ready. Not because I expected more trouble, but because being prepared is never a bad idea. One evening, about 6 months after everything settled, I was sitting on my back patio with Sandra, watching the sunset over the desert mountains. My generator sat nearby, silent but ready. "Do you ever regret installing that thing?" Sandra asked. I thought about it. The generator had cost me money, stress, legal battles, and months of drama. But it had also revealed who people really were, forced necessary changes in the HOA, and ultimately made our community better. "No," I said. "I do not regret it. I wish it had not gone the way it did, but I would do it again. Even knowing what Sharon would do, even then. Because standing up to bullies matters, even HOA bullies." Sandra smiled and squeezed my hand. We sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned orange and purple. The generator represented more than just backup power. It represented autonomy, preparation, and the right to make decisions about my own property. Those were principles worth fighting for. The Saguaro Hills HOA sent out a newsletter the next month. It included a new section about emergency preparedness, encouraging residents to have their own backup plans rather than relying on others. It also included guidelines about respecting property rights and working cooperatively rather than coercively. I like to think I had something to do with that change in philosophy. Life is strange sometimes. You buy a generator to keep your lights on during power outages, and you end up taking down a corrupt HOA president and reforming an entire community association. Not the journey I expected, but the one I got, and honestly, I would not change it. Well, maybe I would skip the part where my tires got slashed. That part was definitely not fun. But the rest, the standing up for myself, the fighting back against unreasonable demands, the protecting of my rights and property, that was all worth it. The generator still sits in my backyard, ready for the next emergency. But now when it runs on my terms, helping who I choose to help when I choose to help them. Exactly as it should be. Sometimes the most important battles are fought not over grand principles, but over simple things. Like the right to use your own generator without being harassed by an overzealous HOA president with a God complex and a laminated copy of the bylaws. I learned a lot through this experience. I learned that HOAs can be forces for good or tyranny depending on who runs them. I learned that standing up to authority, even petty authority, takes courage but is often necessary. I learned that my neighbors, most of them anyway, were good people who just got caught up in a bad situation. Most importantly, I learned that Sandra was right when she said we should buy that generator. Not just because it kept our power on, but because it revealed truths that needed revealing and forced changes that needed forcing. The generator hummed occasionally in my backyard, A quiet reminder of chaos survived and battles won. Not the story I thought I would tell when I installed the thing, but definitely one worth telling. And if another HOA president ever demands I share my generator power because the electrical load is too high, well, I have a lawyer on speed dial, security cameras covering every angle, and a detailed understanding of property rights law. Bring it on.